You know, it's almost like your birthday with a package from China, so let's go. Videos regarding these, let's say, plug and play Android devices, because a lot of them had a lot of issues. However, there were a couple of them that I find still very cool nowadays with the, let's say, gazillion devices they released throughout the years. It's absolutely nuts. And yeah, there were a lot of them, but there were like two particular ones I found quite interesting. And that's also for the Super Console X lineup. It was the Cube, but also the Pro. Both were quite nice when it comes to that. So, particular one is the Cube version. We have the first edition, I think the most common one will the X3. And the X3 chip, I just love this thing, because where you cannot play everything like Wii, GameCube, PlayStation 2, but this is just perfect if you don't really care about those platforms. If you just want to get into the old school stuff, think about the 8-bit and 16-bit era, having different kind of handhelds. Also here we do have limitations, so one of the more familiar ones is even having like 1,000 of arcade games or Neo Geo games you can boot up and play. So when it comes to MAME and arcade, there we don't have the option to actually play Tekken or some more advanced games. But where I always like speak about limitations, we can still play a lot of cool stuff. Where I love these, let's say, basic boxes for 8-bit, 6-bit, PlayStation 1, you name it, you can just actually play them just fine. And the later systems where we do have upscaling options, or we're going to be deep diving in later on in this video, we don't have all of these options because these devices are not powerful enough. But for plug and play cheap solutions, yeah, this is just great when it comes to that. So N64 will always be a mixed bag with this low-end stuff, and in combination with EmuElec 3.9, I think the emulation is just what it is. But some games are just playable, beside all the glitches and slowdowns. Just perfect. Music is great. But what I noticed, like this control I'm using now works way better. Another one on my list of favorite devices that are actually worth picking up is the Super Console X X3 Pro. The name already says it, I mean not the Pro, just the X3. This is actually the improved chip, or is a little bit better power, so we do have overall better support. But what makes this thing one of my favorite ones is not this weird, let's say 8K Ultra HD shenanigans, because that is most of the time a lie. These games are not running on 4K, 8K and all those crazy things. So what you're actually getting with these devices sometimes is just some 1080p output. And as already said, like most of the games are just running on native resolution. However, when you're getting into this device, I did notice that the quality wise, this thing is quite nice. And with nice, I can actually say better, this thing feels like a really nice quality product because of the case. This gives like a more console feeling, having an on and off switch at the front, enough USB ports, and of course the two Wi-Fi antennas you can attach. So where we don't really need any Wi-Fi connection for playing actual games, but if you need to update the system, we can just do it fairly easy, having an option for an SD card and just the necessary ports to connecting this to an HDMI device. If it's a television or a monitor, if it has speakers and HDMI input, you can actually use this device without any problem. But what makes this thing actually pro, or why I actually just love this thing, is that it comes with a built-in storage device like a hard disk. You can swap it out with an SSD if you're going to be cloning the disk, but this is a super convenient way because you can slap in a 1-2 terabyte normal drive for not a lot of money and have like a lot of crazy storage. Particularly when it comes to emulation performance, you can combine this with some, let's say, Dreamcast, Sega Saturn and also PlayStation 1, and you have enough storage to store all of your games. And the way how this thing is configured, the overall quality, I was quite surprised by it. I just love this thing with the on and off switch, the nice case design, enough USB ports, great cooling and a 2.5 inch drive upgrade, and we can switch it out to a big one if you want to. It's great for 8-bit and 60-bit, and we do have, let's say, a little bit better performance when it comes to systems like Sega Dreamcast. But this is a great example where we do have a little bit more power than the previous model we discussed here in this video. This thing has a very cool overall, let's say, library of systems, with the newer EmuElec having a little bit better options when it comes to emulators, a lot of new improvements, and it has like a significant upgrade of the other version, where the price range between both of the Cube and the Pro are very slim. So I think if you're going to be getting a Pro version like this, we have better performance, but also we have some cool features like the hard drive that has absolutely a good thing if you want to emulate PlayStation 1, Dreamcast, Sega Saturn, because they take up so much space, and when an SD card it's not going to be enough, or if you're having like a 1 terabyte, I think these things don't even support a 1 terabyte SD card, it's going to be so much more expensive and it makes no sense whatsoever. And with a game like Assault Rigs, this was pretty damn a shame because it's such a cool game with funky music. And let's be honest, the music of the game is the soul of it. However, the story is kind of similar like with the Cube we'll be discussing. So yeah, we can actually play a lot of different systems, but PlayStation Portable struggles and many other devices too. So, but still, if you want to get something basic, but you do want to have like a cheap upgrade storage possibility, I think the X3 Pro combined with this cooling performance, this is absolutely a very cool device. And we do have options to actually play many different games. But again, the Pro is necessary with this, let's say, SATA drive in the inside if you want to play some PlayStation 1. You have like a massive library, we're going to be needing a lot of space, and SD cards are just not a good option because they're way too expensive when it comes to that. If you want to grab something plug and play from AliExpress, but you do want to have something that is capable of running more and has less limitations, this very strange looking 3D printed case is actually some of the things you can consider with the N100 mainboard in the inside, where they're using in China a lot of old parts when it comes to PCs. This is a brand new part so far, I understand. The case itself is debatable if you like it or not. However, this is a very interesting option, plug and play ready, and you can play actually thousands of different games. Yep, sliding it out, you can see they're using just a Batocera drive in here, a single slot of RAM, and having the N100, a brand new board. So that's absolutely cool with an active situation. But this is quite interesting because this is a board that has a lot of options when it comes for emulation itself. We do have some more options now, so don't expect like say supreme performance with super upscaling. Yeah, PlayStation 1, we can maybe do a little bit on upscaling. PlayStation 3 is in my opinion out of the question, and yeah, we do have overall better performance with Atomic Wave, having some better Dreamcast Saturn, and maybe you can even do a little bit on upscaling, and I think that is a very cool overall option with the N100. I wanted to do a little bit on upscaling of 720p, and the main reason is just wanted to see how far we can push it. Take note that the GPU of the Handhelds are not my favorite ones on board, with a simple reason, because these things do struggle. We can also lower to 480p, and also depending what kind of game you want to play, but some games are very easy to emulate and you can just even maybe get a little bit of a higher resolution going on. So next up, the GameCube, another great system with very nice titles. However, if you want to play some games with this, we can do a little bit of an upscaling. However, I've been testing it with 1080p, but this is way too much. And also depending what kind of game. If you have two-dimensional games, you can do a crazy upscaling where we're having like so three-dimensional games. We have, let's say, less overall performance when you're going to be upscaling to higher stuff. So if you're on a budget and we do want to have a little bit more options when it comes to emulation, this mini PC is a plug-and-play N100 solution. And of course, if you're going to be making it yourself, it's going to be so much more significant cheaper. So yeah, you can also very cheaply make yourself an own console, but that's a different story and also something for a different video. However, if you're going to be looking into China, they are selling these plug-and-play PCs with a Batocera drive built in, and they're exactly the same thing what you're going to do at home with an old PC. However, there they had like this Super Console lineup with all kinds of different mini PCs, including an old Xeon that had the option to play all kinds of cool stuff that we couldn't play before with those cheaper game boxes. On AliExpress you can find some sellers having i9s combined with an RTX card in the inside, like an 2060, 3050 Ti or even a 4060, and if you're seeing this video in the future, there will be like a different cool version out there that can do some crazy stuff. So that is one of those cool stuff you can buy from AliExpress, and where they're selling it with a Batocera drive built in, or you just need to buy yourself one and add it to it. With the right specification list you can create yourself like a crazy powerhouse that can play all kinds of modern games but also retro emulation. Portable, no restrictions, we can put it in the highest setting and everything set to the maximum level to make these games look absolutely stunning.